guys, and welcome back to Palette Chats, the creative podcast where I, Leah Grace Craig, invite and visit other artists like Thomas Flynn, the second, right? Not the third, the second.
The second, correct.
Yeah, so let's jump right into this. So go back in a little bit on what brought you to the arts.
So I guess I've been involved in the arts since I was a junior in high school, so now I guess that's 14 years. Yes, 14 years ago. So yeah, a lot of things led up to that, but it's definitely been a journey.
And you said that you started with like taking flip phone photos,
yeah,
and submitted that to SCAD for undergrad.
Exactly. Yeah, just taking photos of Houston, where I grew up, and the city, and editing them endlessly on like whatever like flip phone like editing software that.
Do you remember what the phone was?
It was definitely one of those where it slid up and it had a keyboard, and then you flipped
like
it, and you could almost.
Was it the BlackBerry like style?
It was like one that it could flip this way, and you have a full keyboard, and it could flip back, and then it could flip up, and then you had like the little thing. So I don't know what that one is.
Yeah.
But, definitely old school.
So can you tell people listening about your art, the appearance, like what it looks like?
Yeah. So my art's always been pretty colorful, but in the last 2 years I've done a lot of plein air painting. So like I've been going out into nature and all through Texas and rural Georgia, and utilizing parts of the landscape in my paintings. So I'll use like river water, stream water, pigments from like dirt. In a couple I've been using like photoreactive pigments, so like turmeric, if treated right, is like photoreactive and kind of absorbs like different values from the sun, same thing as cyanotyping, and incorporating those into my painting to basically make like these swatches that are kind of made from the landscape and are actively responding to the landscape in that way. So they have like kind of different chemical makeup of the water instead of like absorbing the photons of the sun to like kind of change certain values, and then I normally leave them outside to dry overnight, so the dew kind of keeps the paint wet and also like affects how kind of
how it's going to dry and how
because it's all acrylic, so like it keeps it wet throughout the night, and then like the pigments after the acrylic paint and all the other things that get mixed in kind of like absorb into the canvas, making these like swatches of like almost like ripped from nature. So but lately I've been kind of this new body of work that I'm working on, I'm kind of looking for ways to transform. I've been using like the shapes of like fallen trees and like wood to kind of like take their shape and that understanding and like translate it into like shaped canvases and shaped spaces, and I'm working on it to kind of get this idea of like there's life after death, and there's like kind of some element of like transformation and rebirth going on in nature all the time, and maybe we can like incorporate that in
I mean, some of the most beautiful things that I've seen when I'm hiking is the giant like dead trees, and then having like the new trees that even grow on top of it, and
even
having
just
all those
like
roots, and
even just like the mushrooms and like the moss and like dirt that's like on it, and then it becomes also kind of like a shelter. So like kind of like there's a certain shelter in like death, I guess.
Exactly, it can provide a home for life.
Exactly. Like in new ways, new unexpected ways, I guess.
See, when did you first start going outside with your art? Because I know, like, what was, let me clarify that question. You started in gallery work, right? Yeah. And then when did you first start going outside? Like, when did you make that transition?
So it was really in like kind of the summer, fall of 2022 whenever I started doing that. And it was in direct response to kind of the AI art, like, being, like, I guess debuted, released, unleashed, kind of Pandora box a little bit.
I like the term unleashed.
because it really made me question like what is going on creatively with like myself and like just in general people, and like as fine artists I think we have less to worry about as far as job stability than like digital artists or like people who are doing more illustrative things. But I kind of had a rebellious streak, and I wanted to have all of my work be like AI proof, I guess. Like I wanted to like develop such an esoteric, bizarre process that like, you know, even if like a robotic plotter of color like kind of dipped, like robot hand dipping into the value of paints and painted it onto like a canvas, it would not be the same as like what I would be doing, because it's so many different layers, so many different like specific variables that are like happening at that time of creation that like no other time would it turn out exactly the same.
It feels like you're creating mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're almost designing mirrors like all your own. I really love that. Like I love this, and we've got a lot of the pieces right next to us that I'll be including photos of. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can probably see them popping up right here in between us. But if you're not and you're just listening to this on the podcast, please go to our website, www.paletchats.com, and you can see images of all of his work as well as a link to see his work. Yeah,
nice.
That's my little break-in, so everyone knows where to go and find it. Yeah, and you also have a book out now.
I do. I published a like 280 something page coffee table book with this Danish publisher called Snap Collective, but they do a lot of like artist runs of photo books, art books, and it was a really cool experience. Check them out. It's available.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But I don't know. I'm trying to even put together. So you started. What did you do from school to getting into art? Like, what was your career process?
Definitely so I went to school for painting at SCAD, and I graduated in 2016 from the Savannah campus. Yeah. And then after that, my now wife, then girlfriend, got a job in Dallas, Texas. So we both moved there. And you're a junior, right?
Yes, I am.
So you haven't fully experienced the what the fuck am I gonna do with like this degree and life and stuff. That, which don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming, but it's definitely like a rough time, like of kind of reckoning of like, you know, who I am as an artist and what am I doing and who's my audience and all of the questions that everyone's like always has, and maybe that you have for yourself, and maybe others in your life are also asking you like, what are you doing?
What are you gonna do with your life?
Exactly, and it's definitely a time of finding out. So, if I'm being honest, Dallas was absolutely never on my radar. Being from Houston, we always would say that Dallas is the best city in Oklahoma, and that's not saying much.
Oh my God.
But I've always had to eat my words anytime I say something like that. So I ended up spending 5 years in Dallas, and it was and it ended up being like such a wonderful place to live, and a place and like such a strong art scene. I started working at one point I had 4 different part-time jobs that I was piecing together to a full-time job schedule. One of which was an unpaid internship at a Liliana Block gallery, which was absolutely wonderful to get to work at. And Liliana is such a visionary in a lot of ways in regards to the artists that she works with, and just the caliber of artists that she works with. And I guess something that I started picking up then, and then now that I'm like living as a full-time artist, I'm remembering all the conversations that I would have with all the artists that we would show, and kind of do what you're doing now, and ask them like, how'd you start? What do you do? Like, what's your life balance look like? Like, are you married? Are you miserable? Are you happy? Like, do you like being an artist? And
do you like the direction you're going in?
How do you feel? And it's definitely interesting to kind of see and realize that like those same doubts and words and just kind of that voice in the back of your head that's telling you pursue different things or to drop different things. It never quite goes away, and it's always there, but you like learn to have like this dialogue with it. So for instance, I remember talking to one of the artists, and she was telling me that her work would take whatever space that she'd leave for it in her life. So like whenever she like first had a kid, like there was barely any room for art, so she'd make art for like 4 years. But then like kid went into pre-K and like got to like be more independent and hands off, and then she was able to like just carve out a deeper space for art to be in. And I've always liked that idea that like art adapts to whatever life you tend to live, and it's kind of the same as kind of the paintings that I was making in the landscape, where like it's a very specific set of circumstances that like allow you to make the work that you're making, regardless if you're cognizant of that or not. Like if you have access to like, you know, a lot of machinery, maybe you're gonna get into more laser cutting and more like, you know, bigger, cooler things, and maybe if you don't, you're gonna turn more inward, more digitally, smaller scale, like paintings. And whenever I graduated SCAD, my thesis show was I was doing a lot of found object sculptures with wax, mylar, metals, and it was definitely like I wasn't painting at all. And what I found whenever I moved to Dallas and started, you know, figuring out what I was doing there is that if a lot of the conceptual higher level sculptures that I was making that don't sell just end up hanging out in your apartment, and then you kind of just look like that you're collecting trash. And like there's a whole room in the front of our apartment that was like I was collecting like car parts from like wrecks and like bringing them.
Would you just like stop on the side of the road and like grab like hubcaps or fronts or things like that?
Dallas is such a car-centric city, so there's always like wrecks all the time. And my internship was in downtown Dallas, and I lived like an hour north, so driving an hour each way every day was I would just gather all these debris, and then like maybe about 6, I love it until it's about 6 months in, you're looking around and you're just like, I'm
covered in trash.
in a car wreck in my apartment. And then I had a little coming to Jesus with myself, and I threw out all the old car parts, and I decided to put some limits on what my practice was going to look like, and then I started refiguring out paint and reacquainting myself to painting. Because I guess going back, sorry, this is disjointed actually. As far as linear,
this is exactly what we're here for. This is perfect.
This is non-linear thinking.
I love this.
But going back in school, I think I mentioned earlier on in the hallway that I'm allergic to oil paint and oil-based media. So for the first 2.5, 3 years of school, I was not, and I was actively learning and painting in oil, and I loved oil paint so much. I would paint like very like I was more of a figurative painter than anything, and like just like the depth that you can get in like skin tones and like with like the veins and the like tendons. Really big fan of like glazing and doing all of the fun oil paint stuff. It came on pretty suddenly when actually close to my 21st birthday that I would become incredibly nauseous and my limbs would get numb anytime I was like around it or smell it or touch it.
That was definitely not good.
No, definitely not good. And then it kind of onset like a like ocular migraines and migraine auras that would happen and
which
still happen.
Debilitating. Like,
definitely like nausea was persistent for like 7 years.
How long did it take you to realize like what was causing it?
Pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Maybe about like a year or so. Because at first, obviously, I was like, oh my god, do I have a brain tumor? Is there like something going on? So did the whole like MRIs and tests. And nope, nothing ever
like that, which is good.
And but then it's like, okay, what's going on? And it was definitely debilitating because then like what I'd spent like 3 years working on and learning, now I suddenly like would get physically ill anytime I would touch it or be around it, and I still get the like aura migraines, and and it's especially kind of like color overlays, like a lot of times. So like after images on top of like if you look at like the sun or a light bulb or whatever, you like move your eyes away and you see that like
bright light,
the little like
or the black, like the black dots.
Not the black dots, but like if you look at a yellow light bulb, you'll see like a blue after image kind of thing. So that kind of yes, that's all you. That kind of happens pretty much often in some levels, in some way, some scale. It's always occurring in my vision now, but since that like onset, it's very bizarre. And it wasn't until years later that I found out that it's actually kind of runs in my family as a response to stress.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Little gift.
A little gift for your anxiety.
Yeah, thanks. But I guess in part of kind of my quest for like going back to my like current work, like and transformation through like kind of death, like kind of a lot of like rebirth, like and like living on past deaths. A lot of my color understanding now comes from direct observation of like that after images like happening. So like go back to the yellow light bulb, the first after image is kind of like a blue violet, and then that blue violet fades into kind of like an orangish color, and then it fades into like more of a like a cyan blue, like sky blue, and then it goes into kind of like a deeper red, and then it like goes into a goes back into kind of like a green, and then it slowly descends on this color chord all the way into like nothingness as like new color chords happen at the top. So.
And I love that because I was going to ask about your color palette.
Yeah.
How you've arrived at that, because it's a very unique, like...
I kind of forget that the color is actually, like, a thing, because it's just so, like, at this point now, like 8 years, almost 9 years on since that first happened, it's like that is just how I've learned how to perceive color, how to paint color, and it's like...
had an incredible impact on you, like
because it's still
like
happening.
Beauty from pain.
Exactly.
So how do you feel like when you have to completely change a medium, or like when you tossed out your work? I've been thinking a lot about the act of letting go, and so many artists will work on a piece because they're like, I'm invested in this, almost like being invested in a bad relationship. Like you need to just let it go. How do you handle that?
I think, there's whole like religions that are like spawned around like that idea. Like, I mean, in like Zen Buddhism, the like the sand mandalas that the Buddhist monks would make, that's like exactly like what you're talking about. You spend hours putting down the perfect amount of sand and like building out this thing, and then you sweep it away at the end, because the artwork, the like purpose was in the process, not in necessarily the final result. So just because you move on or change your work or like have new questions that need new answers, it doesn't mean that the previous questions that you answered are no longer answered. It just means that you're on to a next step.
Yeah, and my first artist that I interviewed, Madison Minish, all of her work is on the ephemerality of artwork and working with wax sculpture. And her process is to present this really beautiful bust that she's made. I was one of her first, so I was very proud. And then have it melt in front of the audience and having heat lamps on it like, right in front of you. And I just think that that's such a beautiful concept. And having that specialness, or right now I'm working in stone lithography, and you only get so many prints, and then you have to destroy the stone. You're never going to have that same piece again. And that's why I love printmaking.
Yeah, there's that level, like, that's kind of, maybe it makes it easier for artists to understand, like, that concept of, like, moving on, letting go, because we have to do it all the time.
Yeah. And especially with reproductions and prints, and I work primarily in reproductions and prints, but I think it's always important to almost have a limit, to have that specialness to it if you are going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Not to say that you can't, but I know that I always appreciate that if I buy a print because it's more available and I can afford it, I do like still seeing the artist signature, or 1 of 7, or 1 of even 200. Like, it just feels a little bit more connected to the artist.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked in prints other than the book?
Yeah. I did, in Austin, I did a lot of limited edition prints, and like, it's definitely a investment on like getting prints made and done, and I have some up there if you want to look at them.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I didn't know that you had prints. That's exciting for me now.
I do have prints. Available on my website.
I'll also be linked below. My next thing was, when you decide on prints, how do you decide on a company to like get them done? Like, who do you kind of trust to?
So I haven't found a company here in Atlanta open to suggestions if you or anyone has some. But in Austin, I was working with this company called Art Direct, and what I loved about them is that they really cared about the artists, and I'd bring in my painting, and I'd be like, I would like to make this a print.
Yeah.
Scan it, photograph it, which scan if it's smaller, photograph it if it's like larger, and then I want some test prints made, and then come back like a week later and we'd look at the print, that's the artwork, compare colors, adjust the files, and like make it like an exact reproduction. And like I liked it because I could get down to the feel of the paper, the size that I wanted, and then obviously the kind of color maintenance with like the printer.
The more specific I can get, happier I am.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way to do it, if you don't have access to like a print shop that's like that lets you really be an annoying person and like let me touch everything and let's compare every color. This blue's not quite right. Then investing in like a printer and like charging other people to like make prints of it, but then you get like access to like you get to fulfill the OCD-ness of like being an artist and like kind of do your own test prints and adjust the file in specific colors to like kind of to your printer setting, and then
And it is an investment.
It is an investment. It's an investment of time primarily, which is something that I'm learning the more that I'm like in the game as an artist, is that like so much is. It's like things like time is so much more a factor. Like as a student or as a like kind of beginning artist, I go down like rabbit holes, and now I'm trying to focus myself enough to like have like kind of overarching goals that I can compare whatever thing comes up, so I can determine if that thing is an opportunity or if it's just a distraction.
Yeah.
And if it serves the higher goal of whatever I'm trying to do.
That's so hard when you're a student, because every opportunity looks like inviting, like it looks perfect, because you're just so happy to have the opportunity.
As a student, like your whole like, especially at SCAD on the quarter system, your whole like schedule, life, everything gets upside down every 2 months, every 2.5 months. And so the idea that like, anything comes by, sure, why not? My life changes every 2.5 months completely. Like I'm waking up at a certain time, going here, seeing these friends, to next 2 months, never seen those friends again.
Ever.
Like only now your schedule's flipped, and you're working on a whole new thing. Like after you're kind of out of that, then you get a little bit more like, you can kind of like hear past the noise and hear like what you're wanting to actually spend time doing, and what are the important parts.
Getting like you said, like plan ahead.
Yeah, you're able to plan ahead a little bit more, which don't feel bad that you feel like you can't, because I don't think it's possible while in school.
No, like the furthest I allow myself to plan something is like 2 weeks, unless it's like a show that my friend is putting on or something like that. That's the important part for me. But if somebody's wanting to meet up and make a plan to get coffee this morning, this day, I'm like, I can't do that. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Because things change so much. What was your favorite part of school?
I loved getting to talk to other artists about their work and process. That's always something that I like. And now I have a studio at Mint, which is great, because we have like monthly critiques, and we like there's like a studio community. But I didn't have that since SCAD, and then in the like I guess 7 years in between, I've always had my studio outside my house, so like inside my house, and so it was not really that like
a fellow home worker. Nice.
Yeah. Like started off kind of like in like the bedroom, like at a table, and then like then we'd always plan on like renting a like 2-bedroom something, so that one bedroom is like the studio space. And
that's my dream right now. That would be the 3-bedroom. So I got my roommate, my room, and then like our dedicated studio room is like that's out of the realm if I can't find an actual studio space. But man, I'm trying to think. Where do you see like what's your next step?
So I guess next, so what I'm working on.
Materials.
Yeah, so I'm expanding kind of how I'm working, and I'm kind of doing more like proof of concepts. I'm like experimenting with like shapes and like different backings, like aluminum and wood, and the torn canvas was something, but I'm doing like more shape-like, and I want to move into like large-scale sculptures or large-scale like wall installations, I guess. Like think like a 100-foot stretch of like kind of these like things, like really immersive.
Oh, you mean like large scale?
Like large scale. That's what I'm like. That's what I'm working towards. I'm doing like proof of concept on like the smaller stuff, but like that would be the goal, and then eventually I'd like to kind of move into like kind of outdoor sculptures in some way. But there's a balance. I have a very particular sensibility that I want. How I want to work, and then 2, how I want my pieces to kind of function. So I'm working through the small bits right now. But that's what I would say the goal is. It's kind of like large scale, long term projects is more what I'm interested in. I did the like small prints, like I did the whole sticker thing, did the whole like kind of social media, like everyday reeling thing, and
like we said, it's all consuming.
It's all consuming. So I'm trying to be more like strategic and meaningful about what things I invest my time and energy into. And
can I ask, like, what advice would you give like a young artist right now that is being so tempted by social media? And what advice would you give them around like how they enter?
I would say that you should always. I say that you should take some time to do some like soul, like searching of like, why am I doing this? Why am I wanting to make art? What am I like trying to say? And not even like what your art is saying, but like what is like kind of the goal? What is like what are you trying to do? And just like write that down and be really real, and not like I want people to love my work. It's more like am I like, do I want to be like respected in the community? Do I want to like surround myself with beautiful things? Do I want to like dive into like colors? Do I want to like explain this phenomena that I haven't like understood? Do I want to like understand my history better? Like kind of overarching things that no one can like tell you that that's what you're doing. It's for you. And with everything that comes along your way, and that's social media, that's whatever's next that's happening, that's like virtual reality, that's like different shows that you're in, like are they like helping, hindering, or neutral to your kind of overarching goal? That's what I would say. Like if it works for you and it makes sense, then do it, put your all into it. But if it's maybe not a no, but maybe just a not right now, then that's okay too. And you're allowed to work in seasons. I think that there's a lot of like
working in seasons.
There's a lot of pressure on artists to like always be on, always be having a million shows, always be in the studio making a million things. But the reality is that it is ebb and flow. Like sometimes like whenever I'm like, and you'll see other artists too. Like whenever they have a ton of shows, they're not making work, they're boxing up stuff, they're shipping it, they're photographing it, they're rendering it, they're like doing all of the admin things of like being an artist, and wishing the whole time that they were like could paint, and then like if you see someone in the studio all the time and like, oh my gosh, I wish I was doing that, it's like they're wishing they had shows at that point. It's kind of about enjoying like what you're currently, what season you're currently in, and not wishing it away too soon. I think that's something that I'm working on, and that I would say that for young artists, embrace the seasonality of it all.
Yeah, how do you balance that desire to go? Like, how do you
my
keep
need
yourself
to stop.
Yep. That was perfect. My need to stop. Yep, okay. Yep, that's perfect.
Because if you ignore either one, then you become like kind of, if you go all the time, you burn out, and then you have a long stretch of stopping.
And you have to try and
if you're just kind of like on the couch, like just, you know, rotting there and wishing that you were doing stuff, that you're telling yourself it's time to do stuff. Like, and there's like, you know, with art in general, there's always like mental health and like those things that need to be recognized. Sometimes it's a little bit more hard than just like, oh, I should get up today and do something. But
and I know that a lot of people say that you should make art based on your mind and other things, but I think you should use art to discover things about yourself and discover your mind and question yourself. Like,
I think you should use art in whatever way that you want to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because for me, I say that because for so long I was making art because I did I want people to like me. I want people to go wow about me. And then when I stepped back, I realized the art wasn't doing anything for me. And then when I started, I did a thing where I was like, why do I want people to like me? And I was like, oh, because I have low self-esteem and I have low value, and I like when people are looking at me.
That's like if you like kind of stood back and like did like a real like no one's seeing this, like why am I doing this? Like maybe you would have come to that sooner.
A lot sooner.
Because it's easy to get caught up in like external validation of people being like, oh my gosh, you're so awesome, you're doing so much, or blah blah blah, and it's a lot more like if you can like if you can master your internal like journey with it all, then it's gonna be so much more rewarding than, and you're gonna get so much more out of it. And you'll be happy with what you make because you know your supporters, however you build them up, like if you meet them in school or parents or friends, whatever, they're honestly always going to like, or they should. They should never be like, that's terrible, whatever you did. But like, they're usually gonna be like, you know, I love what you're doing. I love that you're making this. I love that you're like doing this. But they're more so like, you gotta kind of filter those comments and like, they may love how you are whenever you're creating. Maybe they love it whenever you seem happy and fulfilled, and they like to see you happy and fulfilled. And you know, those are valid. Those are valid reasons to like, you know, be like, I like what you're doing, but so many times young artists kind of get them conflated and then get really scared to switch things up because they know that they've gotten validation from people being like, oh, I love what you're doing and whatever specific, like, love your landscapes, love your colors, love like this thing, and if you're ready to move on, it's time to move on because those people are going to find new things to like you, and other people who will probably, you know, not think about you for a second longer because you're no longer doing the thing they like, which is also a-okay.
You're allowed to like what they like.
You're in your own journey.
Yeah, exactly. So what is one of your core values that you hope to always take with you, or that you always have taken with you?
I guess I'm always like, in my work, I always develop like kind of a internal set of rules for how I approach things, and then I always have to like my previous series, which there's a frame print behind you, so you can kind of see where it's like kind of like color based, and like kind of there's very specific rules for kind of like how the colors behave outside the shape, inside the shape, in the interior of the shape, and that's a good clear example. But there are rules that exist that I've made for myself in this body work, and I'll forever be making ways that like I can turn them around my brain and like and so my hope for myself is that I always, one, I'm not afraid to break those rules and move on, but then always follow kind of my curiosity, and that's so far what I've been doing, and it's whenever it's time to move on, it's always time to move on. But I'm always following my curiosity, listening to that like kind of inner voice of like, you know,
letting the forest die so anyone can grow.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, the big tree falls down, it opens up, you know, one on the trunk, like life for animals, plants, fungus, all kinds, but then also it opens up a space in the canopy for new trees to like take its place.
As we like come to a close on this, could you tell me one of your favorite stories from being outside? Like funny, sad, anything?
Probably my favorite story was like I went on a self-imposed 5-day residency where I was like staying out in this like middle of the woods, absolutely no one there, and painting these like 3 big paintings, and they were kind of like the breakthrough ones, like for doing this. And it
Those are
took me
still
like
some of my favorite ones.
yeah.
Like.
It was definitely an experience. Anyway, I was out there and I brought my dog with me, and she was like just hanging out as I was painting, and we were just like hanging. I was, you know, probably looking at a piece or having my brush in my hand or doing something like that, and a deer comes bounding, like rushing in. I think we scared the shit out of it. It scared the shit out of us.
Oh yeah.
And because it did this like noise and this like huge donut turn and like kind of almost slammed into a tree and then sprinted off. I think we were like right in the path of where it was like
trying
thinking
to go.
it was going. It was like, holy shit, what are you guys doing here? And yeah, both me and my dog were like,
what the hell?
What the hell? That's probably.
What did your dog do?
Honestly, we were both in shock. We were both in shock and both just like looking for more, and like, and it just ran away.
Yeah.
And
that was a good shot.
That was
to the
it.
moment.
It was here, and then it was gone.
Oh well, thank you for telling me that. I love that. I've got probably endless animal stories from being outside and camping and whatever else, but for another time or today. Yeah, guys. So this has been Thomas Flynn II, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Palette Chats. Don't forget to go and check out the website. Go and check out his website. Can you give your website and Instagram a shout out?
www.thomasflynnii.com and Instagram's the same, Thomas Flynn II.
Perfect. All right. Have a good day, guys, and please go make some art.
Always.
Bye.